This show is brought to you by the Email Laundry, making email safe for your customers. Visit www.theemaillaundry.com/tublog for a very special listener offer and to have your MSP's domain filtered by the Email Laundry for free.
You're listening to TubbTalk, the podcast for IT business owners, with our featured conversation with Richard Tubb and Rob Rae of Datto. My name's Jeff Nicholson, and this podcast is all about helping you grow your IT business. In this episode, Richard talks with Rob, Vice President of Business Development at Datto, a company which provides data protection for managed service providers and their clients. They talked about the importance of security, what open mesh can bring to MSPs, and the future of the new merged company formed by Datto and Autotask. This episode was recorded via a video call between Richard and Rob in Edinburgh for the Autotask Datto First Look Roadshow. And now, without further ado, here's Richard Tubb talking with Rob Rae.
Hi guys, Richard Tubb here. Now, one of the biggest IT stories of 2017 was the merger between Autotask and Datto, two of the biggest companies in the MSP space. So today I'm joined by Rob Rae of Datto, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what that merger means for the wider industry, what it means for Autotask, Datto, and customers as a whole. How you doing, Rob?
I'm fantastic, thank you.
Cool. We're here in Edinburgh in Scotland, as you can see from the beautiful array of whiskey bottles and things that we've got behind us, which we've not partaken in.
We should be.
We'll move through this. But obviously, you've worked in the industry for a long, like 25 years or so?
It hasn't been that long, but probably.
Yeah. So you've got tons of experience with helping IT solution providers to meet their ambitions and their goals. How long have you worked at Datto now?
Datto, I'm coming up to my 5-year anniversary, if you can believe that. It only seems like yesterday, but it's coming up to 5 years now.
And your job title here is Vice President of Business Development?
Correct.
Cool. So the Datto and the Autotask merger, if I understand it correctly, you've got Vista Equity Partners, and they're an investment company.
That's
They owned Autotask, purchased Datto, and then felt that it was better for the two businesses to work together. Am I getting the story correct there?
Yeah, and it kind of made a lot of sense because Autotask is a tool that is designed for MSPs to help them, move their business forward, track their tickets, remote monitor and manage their end users. So it's a tool for the MSP. Whereas, and they're starting to merge in or getting into the sell-through products like the endpoint backup and file sync and share and those kinds of things. And then you look at Datto, which has always been predominantly data protection. And of course, we're a sell-through product as well that is a channel only. So you add in the networking piece, and all of a sudden, when you put it all together, there's this almost complete, at least on the data protection side, option for MSPs, along with a tool that has all the hooks and the alerts and the reports that just make the MSP's life easier. And then you start adding in innovation like SaaS protection and networking and all the other areas that we're starting to get into. It's a complementary fit, and I think that's where Vista saw it, and I think that's why they put the two together. And so far, it's been phenomenal. It's been such a great merger. Like we've done a couple of acquisitions in the past, and Autotask has done a couple of acquisitions. They're never easy. This is really kind of like fits like a glove really well. So.
And how big is the company now, the merged company?
So we're now up to 1,400 employees as a combined company worldwide, and I think that's spread out now over like 35 offices and 400 petabytes of cloud data. It's quite significant. I would suggest it's probably the largest MSP only company in the business as a result.
So Autotask are a very well-known company for their professional service automation. Lots of companies, lots of the top MSPs use it to run their business. Datto, equally well-known for the data recovery and data protection. Vista Equity Partners, not as well known. What do we know about them? Can you tell us a bit more about them as a company?
Yeah, they've obviously been around for some time. They're a very large equity company. They tend to focus exclusively on software vendors that are out in the marketplace. So, again, when they're looking at not just the acquisition of Autotask or Datto, but just the merge the two together, they've got a lot of experience in this realm. The other beautiful part about Vista is they have a good understanding of the IT channel. They understand small, medium business outsources IT these days, and that's a rapidly growing business. So, it's a significant investment, not just into great technologies, but into, in essence, a go-to-market strategy as well with the MSP channel.
What was the ambition behind the deal? What do you see coming out of the two businesses coming together?
Well, I think, with the technologies being very, very complementary, I think that, if you look at what an MSP really needs in their business, it's that single pane of glass, that single bill, making life easier, because when you eat into time, that eats into profitability. So, what are some of the things that we can do to make the MSP's life easier, better, faster, so that they can service their customers more, bill for more hours, those kinds of ideas. So I think that's where you come and you look and put the two together again. It allows us to be very creative and innovative with the MSP in mind. It allows us to do very cohesive things and streamline things with that single pane of glass, single billing, unification, and all that. But I think it's also equally important to say that the open ecosystem is going to be critical through this. Open ecosystem meaning that if you are not a fan of Datto, you love your continuity solution, or your backup solution, your networking gear, that you can still use Autotask and manage that stuff. And very similarly, if you were in love with your PSA and your RMM, but you like Datto, we make sure that we integrate with those solutions as well. So we're not here to dominate the MSPs or force the MSPs to have an all-in-one solution, but we're sure going to try to create the best solutions at the best prices and really create a very MSP-centric company and let the MSPs choose what the best products are.
Yeah, so you want to make it an easy choice for them, as opposed to bullying them and saying, hey, you must use these products.
There's the old expression, we're going to earn your business, and I think that's the direction that we're very much headed towards, is we want to earn your business, and we're going to do it through great technology and innovation and pushing the ball forward and making sure there's lots of margin for the MSP to do that at the end of the day.
Yeah. So there are loads of really, really good employees in Autotask and within Datto as well. I know Austin McCord has stepped in as the CEO of this new company coming together. What does the rest of the executive team look like at the moment? Have we got any ideas of what that looks like? Yeah,
there's been very, very little change. And I think it's a combination of that. You've got the sell to product with the PSA and RMM, and the sell through product with the data protection, the networking and stuff. So it's not so much that this was a merger and eliminate duplication. This was a merger for us to be able to make it a bigger company. So, we've had very, very little change from that perspective, including on the executive team. If anything, we're now complementing each other extremely well, with even more thought leadership and more direction and more just connections within that MSP industry worldwide, that it's going to allow us to push it even faster.
So we've got a lot of products and solutions with Datto. You talked about some of the acquisitions that has taken place over the years. Autotask have bought in RMM companies and other bits and pieces there. What's it going to look like going forward, and what's the focus over, say, the next 18 months for the joint company? It's
a good question. In my role, I'm very tactical. I'm kind of looking at what we're doing right now. And when you look at, like, networking for us is only about a 2.5-year-old project. It's going to take a few more years to really take hold of that marketplace and become like a mainstay product. So you look at all the work that we need to do for that unification between the two projects, while maintaining that open ecosystem. So that's kind of where my day-to-day is actually managed. But if you take a look at Datto, we're an innovation company. And you mentioned Austin himself. Like, Austin, he's a tinkerer. He plays around with different technologies. And I would suggest that Datto's growth over the last 10 years of our existence has been because we like to play around with stuff. We like to tear it down, rebuild it, make it better, make it faster, make it cheaper. So when we look at that, along with our go-to-market strategy, which is MSP only, there's lots of opportunity out there. And DattoCon last year, we did just a real raw beta of virtual desktop, and see, cloud-based virtual desktop. What can we leverage there? What's the interest of the MSP? What's that market look like? This year we've been talking a lot about managed power, and we've actually launched all that. Again, what we're doing is taking not so much traditional products, but products that are out there, making it cloud-based, making it MSP-centric, looking for opportunities, recurring revenue, bringing it to the channel only, integrating it on the single pane of glass. And, we're going to continue to do that as long as there's technology out there that's not customized for the MSP market. I think that's a pretty simple goal. And I think those are things that, if I'm an MSP and I'm looking at what's next for me, those are the types of technologies we'd be looking at.
And I want to talk about one of those specific technologies and one of those acquisitions that Datto made, OpenMesh. Before I do that, we mentioned Austin McCord. I want to give a shout out because I think during the time of the, this big story breaking, the news and everything, Austin was visible on all of the forums. He was on Reddit. It's so refreshing to see your CEO be really transparent and open, and he was speaking to customers directly. So, thank you for that, Austin. That was, and I think it gives a really good representation of the company there as well. But let's talk tech a little bit more. I'm the geek here, and I love the techie stuff. OpenMesh and the launch of Datto Networking. So I got my first glimpse at Datto Networking at DattoCon London last year. Blown away by the product, but more than that, why has nobody done this before?
It seems weird. It totally seems strange.
So perhaps you could explain for people who are not familiar with Datto Networking and OpenMesh as a company, with the acquisitions. What's it all about?
Yeah, absolutely. Just a comment on Austin and your comment there. He's still is still very active in the communities and on Reddit, and anybody can email him or call him anytime. He's one of the best coders that we have at Datto, and I think it's refreshing. Especially when we go to a lot of trade shows and the CEO of some large organization gets on stage and talks about futures or market trends or stuff. And that stuff's interesting and that stuff's good. Austin's the only one that gets up there and actually does a technical presentation. And it's very refreshing. I don't understand half of what he's saying because I am not technical in any sense. But I see our audience comes and they love that the CEO tends to know more about technology than they might actually. So that's kind of cool. And then when you add that to what's the direction of the company. So you look at networking, and that's a perfect example where, I did the same thing. I don't know that much about networking, but Austin, and the team over at Datto comes up with, hey, we need to look at this because there is no viable networking solution for the MSP channel. And my immediate response was, you got to be kidding. There's 1,000 networking products that are out there. And we see them at the trade shows. We see them selling to MSPs. And I found it hard to believe that there was nobody that actually had a MSP-centric offering. And then we start digging in and realizing there really is nothing out there. Like we're taking, again, traditional technology, creating it in an MSP-centric way and going to market with managed networking services. OpenMesh was this wonderful little company that we found that had phenomenal technology, very, very affordable access points and switches, very forward thinking, cloud-based. So it was very innovative already. And what we've done is just added a router or a router to the product suite, the DNA product, which is a homegrown solution. And again, what it does is it closes a lot of gaps that MSPs potentially have. And, one of those major gaps is, for example, connectivity. If an MSP loses the internet connection to a site, that's a truck roll. Truck roll, it equals dollars, it equals time, eats into productivity, and in essence takes away from potentially from margins, especially if you're doing like an all-you-can-eat managed services offering. So very simply, our DNA device, for example, will fail over to 4G. Now, it's not going to be ideal, but it at least gives you connectivity to that site, so you have the ability to go in and troubleshoot, find out what the problem is. Do you really need to roll a truck, or can you just, do some simple fixes? So, again, developing product in the MSP mindset. What are the challenges you have running your business? What are the ways in which you can become more profitable? What are the ways you can make more margin, especially on a recurring revenue side? That was kind of the birth of managed networking.
Yeah. And again, incredible. Nobody's done it before because there's these high-end enterprise products. Yep. There's the consumer-grade products, and I see lots of MSPs using a mixture of both, and none of them very well. Right. So, I was blown away by the idea, and crazy that nobody's done it before, but hey, this is where you are.
You think even just like the fact that nobody's been able to figure out the ecosystem, meaning I can do the access point switches, router, UTM firewall, can do it all in one. Because when you look at the MSPs, they use multiple products on each of those different levels, and it becomes more complicated. It's different panes of glass. It's some integrates with your RMM and your PSA, some doesn't. So it's not an ideal situation. And I think the MSP market, at least up until this point, has been underserved. There's a ton of vendors out there, especially ones that have direct sales, where that's easy for them. They're going to focus on that. They're going to focus on how they're going to make money there. And because of the negligence of the MSP market, I think they've missed a huge opportunity. Because as you know, and you've been in this industry as long as I have, we are seeing rapid growth of MSPs that we've never seen before. This is a legit go-to-market strategy. SMBs, especially with things like cloud and security, are outsourcing technology. They don't want to manage this stuff inside because it's not easy. It's more complicated than ever. So now this massive channel that is out there selling this stuff and nobody's taking advantage of it, leave it for us. We'll take advantage of it.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'd like to briefly pause for a second to let you know about my new book, The IT Business Owner's Survival Guide. I'm the former owner of an IT managed service provider business myself, so I know exactly what it's like to struggle to cope with the day-to-day stresses of running an IT business. I know there are days or even weeks when you get frustrated and wonder whether it's all worth it to go it alone. I'm telling you, it doesn't have to be like that. The IT Business Owner's Survival Guide contains a collection of easy-to-digest guides and tips on how to cope with the common tasks that cause IT business owners worry and stress. If you want to learn how to save time, avoid stress, and build a successful IT business, then you don't have to do it alone. You can buy the IT Business Owner's Survival Guide from Amazon or visit itbusinesssurvivalguide.com and download the first chapter for free. That's itbusinesssurvivalguide.com.
So changing the tact a little bit, we talked earlier on about DattoCon. I was present at DattoCon London last year. Both Datto and Autotask have had thriving conferences and really thriving communities on both sides in Europe and in the US as well. What are the plans for those type of events going forward? Do you think, what are the plans for them? Are we going to still have European as well as US events?
Absolutely. So there's a very specific strategy around that. Obviously, we want to touch our partner base as much as possible. The face-to-face relationship building for us is still critically important. Delivering value and education and moving the entire ball forward, not just the Datto product set or Autotask product set, but moving the MSP business forward. And for us to create these avenues where we can bring that group and that community together, I think is critically important. Now, you look at trade shows, and there's a ton out there, and some of them are products that you use, some of them are just gatherings where you're going to hear new presentations from new vendors. Those are great, but I think the most value, at least in my experience over the years, and even the most value that I get, is talking to each other. And because you've got other MSPs with similar struggles, pulling them all into the same room together, you can accomplish a lot more when you put that brain power together. So I think that's really super important, and I don't think that's going to change. We have taken Autotask Community Live, and we are merging it with DattoCon, and both have been some of the larger user conferences in the world. By putting them together, we now can make it an even more MSP-centric training, learning, experience. It's become more of a global event. So our upcoming one, DattoCon 18, is in Austin, Texas in June, and we're literally going to have 2,000 MSPs there from all over the world. And that power of that learning and bringing all those people together in the same room, along with having great content and great speakers and great MSPs contributing to that content, along with the training on the products that you want. I mean, it's immensely powerful. And we're not going to take advantage of that. We are going to make sure that everybody walks out of there with very, very good note pages of things to go and implement. So that's the US one, but that tends to be our international one. Whereas DattoCon EMEA, which again is the combination of ACL as well as DattoCon, we're still picking a date. We're more than likely leaning towards the end of October, and we're leaning towards Barcelona this year. So That'll probably be 500-600 MSPs from mostly Europe. We're actually going to start pulling and try to pull North Americans over as well, rather than just try to keep it a exclusive European conference. But that's the idea behind it. On top of that, we also have, and we continue to spend money on doing things like what we're here in Edinburgh for today, which is roadshows. Keep coming out to the community. What's new? What's going on? What's the roadmap look like? What are some of the new products we're working on? Because we're constantly evolving and we're constantly innovating. And there's no way an MSP, I barely can keep up, and I work there, but there's no way an MSP can keep up. So this is an opportunity for us to come, shake your hands, look you in the eye, and talk about what's next and what keeps you up at night, and try to find, those opportunities for us to make MSPs' lives better.
Yeah. So you talk to a lot of MSPs. Mm-hmm. If I was to ask you, Rob, what do you see as some of the trends for 2018 and beyond in the wider MSP industry? What are MSPs talking to you about?
I think, it can be, we can get super simple, we can get super complicated. I think security is a huge thing, absolutely huge thing. And there's this whole, and we dealt with this when cloud technology came out quite a few years ago, where, do I migrate from, I was a reseller, I became an MSP, do I now have to be a cloud solution provider, a CSP? And we saw very little of that move. Instead, it's still on the MSP realm, but I'm adding cloud services in. And I always talk about the journey of the MSP or the channel in whole is that it's an evolution, not a revolution. And for you to rip everything out and go cloud only, and now rip everything out and go MSSP, managed security services provider, like that's not the way and that anybody that's done this has been successful. It's always been adding these key services in. So security has been definitely one of the bigger wins. And I talked about it a little bit before, where when you start talking about complexity around IT, that's when the end user goes, just I'll pay you and you deal with this. You deal with the complexity of it, which is the opportunity for the MSP. The great part about security, very similar to cloud, was the MSP's been doing 80-90% of this already. They just haven't packaged it up in a security sense, or basically communicated to the end user that I've already got your antivirus and malware and spam and all that stuff taken care of. Backup is now included in that security stack. There's some newer stuff that's coming out. They can just simply plug that into their MSP offering and continue to tell that story. So I don't think it's so much a technology revolution. It's just more of a reframing the conversation and making sure that the ultimate end user understands that you as an MSP are evolving, or at least in their mind evolving, and continuing to stay ahead of all the nasty things that are out there right now. And we spend a lot of time and energy, and you saw it today with our roadshow. We just spent a lot of time educating on even what go-to-market strategy is, much less what the technology does.
Mm. So I'm intrigued, longer term, Datto and Autotask coming together, creating this big company. Mm-hmm. Do you yourself getting onto the radar of companies like HP mm-hmm. and Dell and others? What does it look like, the long-term vision for this?
That's a great question. Both organizations, Autotask and Datto, were growing very, very rapidly, and we continue to grow rapidly. Now we're doing it together under the Vista umbrella. Does that mean that at some point we're going to sell out to HP? I don't think so. I don't think that that's what the goal is. The times are different. These are traditional organizations that haven't necessarily figured out the SMB space, the MSP space. They've got their happy place in their enterprise markets. Then stay in your enterprise markets and direct sales and stuff like that. Does that? I mean, I don't know. I'm part of this journey as opposed to one of the decision makers in this. But if I had my gut feel, we're on a great run. Why would we change that? Why would we mess with that? And unfortunately, a lot of larger acquisitions or larger companies acquiring smaller ones, the impression of the MSP market, and I've heard it over and over again, is that that's where good products go to die. That's where good strategy around SMB and focus on the channel go to die. And I kind of use this. Expression that you can't be half pregnant. You either sell direct or you don't sell direct. You're channel only or you're not channel only, right? And to talk out of both sides of your mouth, to talk to an MSP about how much money you can make with their product, how great your product is, but I'm also going to sell it direct to your end user. it hasn't been our way. And I think when you start dealing with those much larger organizations, you don't have a choice there. And that just really has not been part of our DNA on either side, Autotask or Datto. And then, I'm again completely fortune telling here. I have no insight to give you, but it's just not what we've been doing and what's made us successful. So why would we mess with that?
Yeah. Before we go, I'm very conscious of time. You're a very busy man traveling around the world. And you've also got a cold, haven't you, today?
I do have a little bit of a cold, so I need to get some of that.
I'm holding you back from the whiskey, medicinal whiskey here. But before you go, I'd just love to ask you this question. You speak to so many MSPs, so many IT solutions providers, and you have done for many, many years. Out of all those conversations you've had, if I could wave a magic wand and give you a billboard, and on that billboard you could put a single message that every MSP is going to see, what would that message be?
All right, I'll give you a perfect one. I was at a conference in Hong Kong recently. It's all solution providers, IT providers of all different ilks that were at this conference, but it was focused around cloud technology. And what happened was there was a little competition amongst all attendees, including vendors and MSPs alike, that if you had a message to give the greater community, what would that be? And I put something together and I sent it in, and that was kind of, I won this competition. There were three of us that won it. It was a couple of MSPs, one from India, one from China, and then myself. So we're going to get on stage, and you got 3 minutes to deliver your inspirational message to the channel. But as I'm sitting there, I'm watching a panel. Okay, it was the last panel of the day. There was a bunch of MSPs on there, and it was really cool that what they did was that the audience could ask questions, and the questions would appear on the screen behind the panelists, and then other attendees could vote up a question, and then that would be the question the panelist would ask the guy running the panel. And there was a question that popped up and said, "What vendor will not be in business in the next 3 to 5 years?" And all of a sudden, it's getting voted up and up and up, and it's literally like the top with like 300 votes attached to it. And the guy running the panel's avoiding the question, because who wants to be put on the spot to say which vendor will be out of business in the next 3 years? Because chances are they're at that show, it's being recorded, they're going to see it, and you're saying it in front of thousands of MSPs. So I got on stage and I didn't list off the vendors. What I did say though, and I think it rings true, that all of us vendors, and that's large and small, because I've talked to the large guys, I see the smaller guys coming into the market, I see the brand new vendors that are coming in here, and they're choosing, the smaller ones specifically, are choosing channel-only strategy. The larger ones are trying to figure out how to go back to channel-only strategies. And I think that's because the buying power of the MSP, it is now something that is very formidable. It's something that is extremely large and really one of the fastest, if not the only growing part of the actual channel community as a whole. So I think that as an MSP, and I said this when I got on stage, I kind of changed my plan a little bit, was that, I think that it's time. I think it's time that the MSP servicing the small, medium market stops apologizing for being a 1-man, 5-man, 10-man, 50-man shop. Stops apologizing for not hitting quotas that large vendors have set out. Stops apologizing for, using a lackluster technology because they've got some certification level, and instead turn that conversation around and start demanding more from your vendors. If your vendor sells direct, tell them to stop or find one that doesn't. If your vendor's not giving you enough margins or cutting your margins, stop and go find a vendor that does. And I think the response that we'll see, and we're starting to see it from the vendors out in the marketplace, is they will turn and they will change and they will make the MSP's life better, because resellers are shrinking. Value-added resellers are shrinking. It is pure MSP play right now. And I think it's time that the channel kind of stood up and said, here's my voice, and listen to it.
Fantastic. Rob, you are, and I don't use this term lightly, an industry legend.
Oh, please.
I've known you for a long time. You're one of the hardest working men in the industry and one of the most liked men in the industry as well.
Thank you.
For anybody out there who wants to get in touch with you, to reach out to you, how can they find you online?
I'm on LinkedIn, Rob Rae, R-A-E. Twitter is at Rob T. Rae. I'm on Facebook as well, and my email address is just rob@datto.com.
Fantastic. We'll include all of that in the show notes as well. Rob, thanks for your time today. Now, can I buy you a medicinal whiskey?
Absolutely, or 3. I'm totally in.
Rob Rae, thanks very much, mate.
My pleasure. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks for listening to TubbTalk, the podcast for IT business owners. You can find the show notes and bonus content for this interview, along with dozens of other interviews with IT business leaders over at www.tubblog.co.uk. If you enjoyed this podcast, then we'd really appreciate you rating and reviewing the show over at iTunes. Every review helps us reach new listeners and helps raise the bar for success in the IT industry. In our next episode, Richard speaks with Melissa Saar to discuss about being a woman in a male-dominated IT industry. Thanks for listening, and I'll speak to you next episode. Have a great week.
Okay, I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsors, the Email Laundry. The Email Laundry combines security services with your customer's preferred email service to give them a truly enterprise-worthy email system. Well, what does that mean? Well, as an IT business, whether your customers are using Office 365, hosted Exchange, an on-site Exchange server, or any other type of email solution, cloud-based email security from the Email Laundry is a neat and effective solution for your customer. It will block spam and virus email with an impressive catch rate. Put simply, when your customer's email server is protected behind the Email Laundry, they'll thank you for the security it offers them. Now, the Email Laundry are offering free email security for your own domain to all listeners to this podcast. All you have to do is to sign up for a free partner account through the special listener URL www.theemaillaundry.com/tubblog. Use that link to have your own domain filtered for free for 1 year. And there's more to this special offer. If you bring on board 100 paying mailboxes during your first 6 months, the Email Laundry will give you your own domain for free for another 12 months. So that means 2 years of the Email Laundry service for your own domain for free. Sign up for the Email Laundry now using the special listener offer at www.theemaillaundry.com/tubblog.